Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh b'dvarai. All right, good morning, Chevra. A good Erev Shabbos. What a privilege to jump back into our journey through Sefer Likutei Moharan with Torah Nun Vav. And today's shir is sponsored by Zev Klein, Nishmas's parents who have Gramada Bas Simcha and Yaakov and Ishayo. Also for shidduchim, for Yehudis Adina Bas Elisheva, Rochel, Dovid, Fayga, Kayla, Yonatan, Shimon, Hadassah, Ronit, Netanel, Meechal, Mahnaz, Dovid, Yael, Noach, Avraham, Zev Ben, Rav Gabriel, and all the singers of Klal Yisrael. Also dedicated anonymously to Nishmas Esther Bas Blanca, Zochim the Rochel, like her namesake, an exemplar of true royalty. Also dedicated as a schus for Shlimmer for Chaim Yehoshua and Chaim Miriam, to check in with him, see how he's doing. Also sponsored anonymously the schus, the very wonderful Chaim Ben Peril, and his wife Pesel Bas Bluma Peril, and their children, to Meechal Hamshech Kedusha Eretz Yisrael, B'siyata D'Shmaya, in every wonderful way. And it should be a schus for all of Klal Yisrael, who merits, I'm sure, from our learning together, b'mesiras nefesh. Okay, so with Hashem's help, we're going to continue with Ois Hey, and the last thing that we were learning was about the nature of the Torah that is hidden in the Hastaras. It is Davga Soidei Torah. We learned about Pshat, and about Pshat is connected oftentimes to black and white thinking, rigidity, the inability to see nuance, the inability to look deeper. The more that a person goes into a panemius-minded consciousness, the more they're able to look at struggle and challenge and to contextualize it and get out of the tunnel vision of seeing what's going on in the moment and to look at the bigger picture, to see the journey and the way that the journey led them to where they are now, to see where they are now and the challenge that they might be experiencing in the context of where they might be in a week, right? And that's panemius, right? That means not just to look at the pshat, of the stuckness of the moment, but to go and look at things in a bigger way, in a broader way. And that's the Torah that's in the Hastara, that the person who is connected to Torah in the aspect of drawing Arichas Yamim down into Kalim, which is the Nekuda of the Maniyarich Yamim Al-Mamlachta V'Karabai, right? To call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the Torah Kedusha, that's what the Torah becomes, that a person who is in such a lifestyle is able to unify the Arichas Yamim, which is the Bechina of spiritual energy, in and just expansivity down into Kalim. Memela, he's able to help the person in their own life balance their RN Kalim, which is the Nakuda of Ratzah V'Shoiv, right? Being able to bring that R of Baki B'Shoiv, of Hineka, but keeping the Kalim of Ratzah, right? We still want to grow, but we also want to know that we have a Kadosh Baruch Hu with us no matter what. We want both, right? So he's able, because he's integrated the light and the vessel in his own life on account of his engagement with Torah in the right way, he's then able to go ahead and to bring that R into the life of the person who's struggling and reveal the Torah therein, thereby demonstrating the way in which even the experience of din, of Kalim, of Gevura, was itself an aspect of R, right? And to integrate the R and the Kli, that integrates Chachma and Bina, that produces Das, that integrates Chesed and Gvura, that's the Torah Kedusha, that's Tiferes Yisrael. And then we're able to use our Malchus in the right way. That's the Bechina Mordechai and Mordrar, right? That his Malchus is in Cheres, that he's using it for the reason it was given to him, because the Rebbe told us right in the beginning, Ki yesh b'chol echad Yisrael b'chinas Malchus, every Yid has the ability to influence, to impact, and the reason that we're given that opportunity to influence and to impact is to be marbe kvoid shemayim. That's it, right? That's why we have this possibility of being able to be influencers, right, in some way, is to bring the R of HaKadosh Baruch Hu into the world. Okay, so with that we continue with Ois Hey, in Torah and Vav, and says they like Tzadik who connected Malchus D'Kedusha yesh Malchus Harasha. In contrast to Malchus D'Kedusha, which you learned about also in Torah Aleph, there's Malchus Harasha. There is the wicked kingdom, the kingdom that wants to do exactly the opposite as the holy Malchus. The holy Malchus wants to reveal that Ki L'Hashem HaMelucha, that everything is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that everything, we spoke a little last night also, you're living life in the throne room of the king, like we learned in Torah Nun Hey. Everything, Ein Kan Ela HaMelech Ba'atzmai. There's nothing here but the king himself. And that's what Malchus D'Kedusha wants to reveal. But there's also the energy of Malchus D'Kedusha, Malchus D'Kedusha and Malchus Haman-Amalek. That's the aspect of Haman-Amalek, which is the Nekuda of Keri, Asher Korcha Baderech, Stam, to live in a mindset of Keri. And the Indian of Haman, right? Hamina Eitz, the Nekuda of the Eitz Hadas Toivara, the Nekuda of duality and multiplicity, the Ilana de Sfeika, right? The Indian of Suffolk, Amalek is Suffolk, right? To live in a world where you don't have clarity, you're not able to see the way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running everything, where you really feel that Hashem is mamish real in your life, right? And communicating to you, communicating throughout your journey. Or rather, it's a mindset of mikra. It's a mindset of Imtelchu Imi B'Keri, like we learned in last week's parasha. That's what Keri means. Reb Tzadok HaKohen says the most amazing thing in Sikas HaTzadik. Reb Tzadok's Sikas HaTzadik, in addition to many things, is essentially an exposition on Pegama Bris and Shmir Sabris. Old Sikas HaTzadik. These are pieces scattered throughout the whole entire thing that address in the most remarkable, brilliant, compassionate, expansive way. Maybe too expansive according to some, but mamish extremely broad-minded perspectives on the inyan of struggling with this particular struggle. And one of the pieces over there, he says, because the whole thing of Keri is that it causes a person to think that stam is just mikra, right? I mean, that's what it is, right? Meaning it causes a person to fortify in their mind a mindset and a perspective on life that sees the world as just being arbitrary. Because in that moment, a person's disconnected to Hashem. And the voice inside says, what does it matter? It matters. It doesn't matter. Like, let's be honest. Is this worth it? Is there an Olam Haba? Like, is there meaning in this world? Right now, you're living for this moment. Remember, we said yesterday, Reishis Goyim Amalek, it's Gematria is Rosh Hashanah's Rega, right? Wants to keep you focused in the moment, disconnected from a broader context, right? Because you have to be really anchored in the broader context to care about this. Right, to care that your life should be elevated, to care that your life should be with dignity and etc. Right, and all it wants to do is to schlep a person into the moment. Rega ba'apoy, reishis goyim amalek. So Reb Tzadok says the tikkun for this is in the tshuva process, looking back at all the pegamim and realizing that there was never any mikra. Realizing that all of the mistakes and all the averis and all the stuckness and the falling and the acting out, etc., in the past, was all part of the master plan, because here it is. It got you to the point where, now, like we said at length yesterday, you're ready to learn lessons. You're ready to grow from that experience, right? You're ready to be pushed into an akuda of shivron leiv, where you're able either at a certain point to ask for help, right? And to ask for help from other people, to ask for help from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be in a posture of humility, to be in a posture of allowing HaKadosh Baruch Hu into your life through tefillah and espodedus. So that undoes the Keri, right? That itself undoes the Keri. When a person is able to look at experiences that in that moment we're seeing a stam being mikra, right? Meaning like, why did it have to happen this way? I wish I was a tzaddik. And the way to rectify that is when a person is able to get to a point where they're able to look back and say, lehepech, I needed to go there because look what I gained. Look where it brought me, right? Look what I was able in the tshuva process to be able to get to a point where Chazal already tell us, it's all rooted in these Chazals, you were able to get paradoxically higher than you could have not having experienced that, right? Which we said is the lessons, is the kalim that are created in Baki B'Shoiv, that is able to anchor a person's Baki B'Ratzah and puts them in a higher place where they're able to experience the transformation in their own minds, right, of their zdainas into schuyas.
Can that stifle growth though? Because you think it's not the end of the world, I can continue to sin.
Yes, that's why again, Ratzah v'Shoiv together, like we say. These two things have to be anchored, right? Stifling growth would be too much Baki B'Shoiv, right? Where a person is in the Hastara, that's what we said, of saying, no, I'm close to Hashem anyway, so it doesn't matter. That's why there are tzaddikim who communicate these things and not Rishon. Right, so the tzaddikim, obviously, they were tzaddikim, so obviously they weren't coming to tell you, it's okay, you can continue sinning. No, they mean it in terms of chizuk, that retroactively, once a person's in the tshuva journey, and they want to break free, they're not interested in living in this insanity anymore. So then you look back, and then part of the tikkun is to say, I realize and recognize why I had to go there to come here. Right, and that transforms the mikra, the Keri, into something that's real. Okay, but be that as it may, the Malchus or Esha is an akuda of Malchus Haman-Amalek. There you go. Reishis Goyim Amalek. And Rashis is the Nakuda of Malchus, right? There's a Rashis of Amalek. There's a Rashis is Malchus, right? His leadership, rulership, the first, the one who's in charge. V'zelu umazeh. And these two things parallel one another. Ki Malchus D'Kedusha hu bechinas ma'asef l'chol hamachanois. Malchus D'Kedusha is a unifying energy, like we said, right? It wants to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu in everything. There's nothing that falls outside the boundaries of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence. So it wants to be kindness. It wants to gather in. Doesn't want to release. Malchus D'Kedusha wants to ingather. Sof Davar, at the end, when I call Nishma, when everything has been heard, I say, a person should fear God. Malchus. And that's an aspect of Malchus. Right? Without the awe of the and fear of the kingship, so then everybody would swallow each other up, right? Malchus is associated with Yira. Malchus is associated with Yira. So Eselikim Yira is a Bechina Malchus, and you find it right after the word Sof Davar Hakol Nishma. What's Sof Davar? Sof Davar is the last Shevet that traveled with all the Shvatim. That was Sof Davar. Hainu Shem Malchus D'Kedusha Bechina Sof Davar. And so the Kim Yira, Malchus, is connected to Sof Davar, Bechinas Ma'asef L'chal HaMachanos D'Kedusha, which was the aspect of Ma'asef L'chal HaMachanos, Bechinas Machan Dan. We know that Shevet Dan was traveling all the way behind all the other Shvatim. It was the last one in the Midbar, and therefore any of the lost objects that were dropped was Shevet Dan was Ma'asef L'chal HaMachanos. They gathered everything in. They made sure that Klal Yisrael didn't leave a trace in the Midbar. You know, archaeologists today, they haven't scoured the whole entire desert, but they don't find anything, and there's like a big proof that they weren't there. What do you think they did? They built skyscrapers? They lived with tents. So what do you expect to find exactly? There's nothing there, right? But Dan, Mamish went and made sure that there's no artifacts. They Mamish cleaned the desert, you know? Shevet Dan was Ma'asiv L'chol HaMachanos. They gathered in all of the different lost objects. And it's got to be Shevet Dan. Because Shevet Dan is the Bechina of Sof Davar, because it was at the end. And Sof Davar, we said, is the Bechina of Yira. I said the Kim Yira, which is the Bechina of Malchus. And Meechal, that's done. Ki Dina de Malchusa. Dina. That Shevet Dan is the Dina de Malchusa. So Shevet Dan is the Nakuda Malchus. It's Sof Davar. It comes at the end. And what is the job of Malchus? In this case, Malchus D'Kedusha wants to unify. Wants to gather everything in. It wants, like we just said from Reb Tzadok, to demonstrate that there's not one Maisa, Machshava, Dibor that falls outside the master plan, right? It wants to gather everything in and say, no, everything was part of the journey. Everything. Bar none. Every detail of life, in my own personal life, in the life of Klal Yisrael, in the life of humanity, in the life of existence, everything is mamish, part of the master plan. That's Malchus D'Kedusha, wants to unify, bring everything under one category. But Malchus to Sitra Achara is also Ma'asef. So Malchus to Sitra Achara, because it's a Zelu Umazev, Malchus D'Kedusha also had the tendency to gather in. But what does it gather in? Ma'asef Mammon. It gathers in money. Malchus to Sitra Achara also has a tendency to gather. But it's not gathering Nitzotzes to Kedusha. In order to bolster its individuality and its separation from everything else, it wants to just gather as much money as possible so that it could turn itself into a success, so that it can then have influence on others. But again, not in a way of spreading Malchus Shemayim. It's just for himself. Which is the exact opposite of Malchus D'Kedusha, that wants to unify, wants to gather everything in, but not to itself. Wants to gather everything to Hashem. Wants to gather everything into this category, right, of the Ein Sof. And a Malchus Harsha is one of those elements trying to suck everything in for himself. And that's the Bechina Ma'asef Mammon. Because he's worried, based on a pasuk, that Bilai Mipiv, that what he has swallowed will be extracted, will be gathered up, will be included in the unifying category of Malchus Shemayim. Because he has lots of nitzotzes to Kedusha. So he wants to swallow up by causing a person to want to gather lots of money. What's money? Money is Nitzaitze D'Kedusha. Nitzaitze D'Kedusha. We spoke about how deep money is. Right? Money is value. Money is just the physical representation of value. Value is worth. Worth is God. Godliness, right? Meaning. The only true reality. The Mechuyev HaMetzias, sparks of which are enclosed within value. That's what every exchange is. It's an exchange of value. It's a very intangible thing. Money, you think, is very tangible. Today it became less tangible because everything is on a card. Everything is in Bitcoin, whatever it is. People are not going to have money anymore, right? Which is a very spiritual, elevated thing, right? When you have gas money, like coins jingling in your pocket, you think money is like a very physical thing. It's not. Those coins are not. They're not worth the money that they cost, right? It's a paper, right? It's what does it cost, right? £100 bill to produce, 3 pence. It's nothing. It's a little plastic thing, but it's representative of value. It's a very deep thing. And so it says Rabbi Nachman, he says it here, he said it already in another place we learned. Money is Nitzaitze HaKedusha. That's the Nakuda of the sparkling colors in the metals that money actually represents, right? Which is gold. Gold is real. Gold is real value. Right? Gold in and of itself is valuable. A 100-pound thing you can't do anything with. Gold people want. People really do want that, meaning it's fundamentally valuable. Kesef, unachoshes, right? The metals. Shehem hamaman, which is, at least at its core, the root of money. And we know that zav, kesef, nachoshes, or at least zav and kesef, as the nakuda of kesef is chesed, zav is gvura. These are spiritual energies come down into this world.
Is he worshipping money? I'm not following. I understand.
No, he's not worshipping money. You tell me what he's doing, Mendy. I think you can figure it out. You tell me. What do you think he's doing? Let's think. What do we say? We just said that Malchus D'Kedusha wants to gather.
I understand the value element. I'm not loving the as in time and the Kedusha and value and that, the importance of that. The correlation of money isn't that we're supposed to be, we're not supposed to be worshipping money.
We're not worshipping money, no. Not at all. So what he's saying is that kesef and zav exist in this world because they, at their root, are the embodiment of the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like everything, right? Just like my right hand and my left hand are revelations of Kedusha, right? Like everything in this world, ish and isha, everything you can think of, right? So what he's saying over here is that lehepech, because Malchus Harisha is worried that the Kedusha that exists in the world is going to be used for Hashem, so as the contrast of that Malchus D'Kedusha, it wants to gather all the money in for itself and to hold it back from being used for Kedusha, meaning to grab all the Nitzaitze Kedusha that are in money, that are taka able to be used if we have a healthy relationship with money and don't worship money, right? Obviously, then we're able to use the money properly to elevate the Nitzotzos there, to integrate them into a healthy life, to use them to serve Hashem. Here he's speaking again of Malchus Harisha. This is what Haman wants to do. It's what Amalek wants to do. Where does that tendency come from? Because they know that they're in a battle with the Malchus D'Kedusha guy. What does the Malchus D'Kedusha guy want to do? He wants to gather all the money in the world, right, so that he can distribute it to the poor. Right, whatever interest there is in trying to bring value into his life, it's mamish in a way of Kedusha, and it's not just the money, but it's every experience and it's everything that exists. As Nitzaitze Kedusha, he wants to gather it up and elevate it. And so as like a knee-jerk reaction, Malchus the Sitra Achara, right, Malchus Harisha wants to protect itself. And the place that the Nitzaitze Kedusha are most readily accessible, he's saying is in their iterative manifestation in the value that is represented in gold and silver, which is the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right here, again, he's speaking about Malchus Harisha, not Malchus D'Kedusha. Yeah.
Can we say then that the difference is that whether Mammon is there as a tool or as a purpose?
Nachon. That's exactly.
Tool, the Kedusha, as a purpose,
That's exactly right. However, once there's a difference between money as a tool or as a purpose, the relationship with it is also going to change. Meaning, naturally, a person who views money as a tool is not going to be a workaholic, right, and spend the entire day at the office, because it's not a holy thing. So even if there's holy ends, the ends are going to transform the means, right? So Mamela, you're going to have a person who works more honestly, who works more moderate hours, who works with like we said, maso matan be'emuna, right? Who works with faith and with. It's going to change the way that he's relating to it. Here he's speaking again about Malchus D'Kedusha. So who wants to gather all the nitzotzos, so that Malchus D'Kedusha, engaging with money in a non-worship oriented way, in a holy way, is able to go ahead and he can protect against that person, so that he can elevate it to Kedusha. Shehem Amaman, right, which is those energies that are revealed in money. Taavas Ashirus, and this is where it comes from, the taiva for Ashirus. That person that we spoke about before, who sees money as a means, it's not called Taavas Ashirus. He has no interest in being wealthy. He has interest in making as much money as he needs, and then any surplus he's going to give away. It's not a goal of his. Doesn't want to be wealthy. There are people like that. And it's like, we live in a culture like, what do you mean? Like, that's not a goal. Yeah, that's not a goal. There are people who'd be perfectly happy if they could flick a switch to be a millionaire. They will not flick it. What switch will they flip? I need to be able to live a comfortable life for myself and my family and not worry. That's it. Don't want to be wealthy. I'm not anything more than that. I pasha don't want. Why should I need? I have no interest, not a value. It's not a. And this can be very frustrating, like working with business coaches. Let's say, because a business coach wants you to make as much money as possible. And like, if you don't want that, you just don't want it. It's just it's not one of your values. And it's like, for some people, it's like impossible for them to grasp. Like, what are you talking about? Not interested. There are other things that are more important. There are values, things that I'm not willing to transgress, right, in order to put myself in a posture where I'm able to make a lot of money by putting other people down and stepping on people along the way, or by being dishonest, or by, or you know what I'm saying, or using methods that are not, like, those things matter more. So, but there's a thing called Taavas Ashirus. Taavas Ashirus, no, that's Malchus de Sitra Achara. A person, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, put in a position that they are making more money that they need, and then uses that money to support Torah and to support good things. There's nothing greater than that in the world. There's nothing greater than that in the world. That person needs to know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu selected them, hand-selected them, of all the people, because he trusted that person to serve as a shliach in the world. And that person absolutely has a closer relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu than others. In bebechina mesuyamet. It's not stam that Hashem chose that person, but they have to be ne'emanim. Right? And there's a very big nisayon, because a person who's in a position where that's a big gvir is in the nisayon and needs to check in with themselves. What's going on here? Doesn't mean he can't live a comfortable life. I'm sure he can live a comfortable life, but it means what you understand. What's the real purpose of all of this? Right? It's a big nisayon. The Mesillas Yesharim writes in Parak Aleph famously, he says, this whole lifetime you're in a war. And he uses this as an example. He says, Oini mitzad echad, va'oisher mitzad sheni. On the one hand, being poor is a huge nisayon, right? And struggling and trying to figure out how you're going to pay rent, etc. Right? On the one hand, that's challenging. On the other hand, being a big oisher is also a nisayon. Everybody's always looking at everybody else, saying, if only. No, there's nisyonis everywhere. Everywhere there's nisyonis. But this is a nisayon. Zebechinas Taavas Ashirus, zebechinas Malchus. So in other words, just to underscore this point, a way to counteract the nisayon of Ashirus, of Taavas Ashirus, is to use money to spread Malchus Shamayim. Right? Is to use money in order to make sure that we're doing our part to further bring the consciousness of achdus, of unity, and a unified consciousness in people who are going to be able to walk through the world and find HaKadosh Baruch Hu in all their circumstances. That the energy of Geula. Umala aretz dea ladas as Hashem kamayim liyamachasim. That is what Mashiach will be. What's das? Chachma and Bina. Bina and Chachma. Unifying all the pieces back into the one. If you can use your money to support that, like the spreading of that consciousness, It's the biggest tikkun on planet Earth, the biggest tikkun in the world. Because the Taavas Ashirus wants to do punkt fakir. Mamish the opposite. Yeah.
On that point, for people who haven't got, they can't compute the fact that people who have got haven't the same as A. But also, I was telling people that if they had two options on the front of them, one of them was 20 million, the other one was 120 million. I was trying to explain to them that they want 20 million, they don't want 120 million. Because at 20, you understand what I'm saying? Because what comes with that scale and that amount is just not what you think it is.
Right? Unless you have it tzaddik. Right? I mean, if somebody came to Reb Chaim Yehoshua, right, and said 20 million, 120 million, it doesn't blink. Of course 120 million. Because to him, nothing in his lifestyle will change. Not 20 and not 120. He's living in Gan Eden already. He's not going to change. All of a sudden he wants a Rolex. Reb Chaim Yehoshua, like he doesn't care. He's not. So what he will do though is he's going to use that money and
But Joe Public though. The average person thinks he wants 120 million. He doesn't want that.
That's right. There's this yaina. So I think the statistics about people who win the lottery, which might be a slightly different thing because the dynamics are different. He didn't like earn it steadily out of the amount of suicide and the amount of mental health issues that are caused, which is crazy. Because imagine, like, you always think back, because on the radio they play the phone call, right? Because that's what they're trying to get you. They're running around and jumping around. Like 6 months later, the guy's like in some psych ward. Yeah, like. Who knows? But it's not simple. Taavas Ashirus. But if a person's been blessed and they want to be metaken Taavas Ashirus, this is the best way. Giving money to support the spread of unifying awareness. That brings the world closer to Gula, undoes the taiva of Ashirus, of Malchus to Sitra Achara. Because again, Malchus D'Kedusha is ma'asif l'chalamachnis, but in a positive way. The klipa of that is just ma'asif as much money as I possibly can for me. Okay, that's the dynamic.
One of Reb Noson's 3 things was.
That's right, supporting the Rebbe. That's right. That's very. Oh, well, you know that because of the conversation in Uman with the Nanach over there.
No. No, from here.
Oh, that's what they were hawking about over there. They want to get us.
I know they were talking about.
That was funny. Okay, right, good. Yes, in Breslov it's a very big inyan to support the spreading of Torah Rabbeinu. In Breslov there's nothing higher than that, right? Because what could you possibly do to bring Mashiach more than spreading the Ar of Rabbeinu HaKadosh? That's the pinnacle. Okay. The Alkein Amalek, therefore the inyan of Amalek Shu Malchus or Isha Roid of Ismachan done. That's why it makes sense that it's not stam. You have 2 symbols. There's the Bechin of Amalek and there's the Bechin of Dan. No, they interacted in the Torah. Amalek runs after Shevet Dan. That's why. Shehu Bechinas Malchus D'Kedusha. Because now we understand that Dan, being the Sof of all of the Shvatim, is the Bechin of Sof Davar, which is Elikim Yiro. So Dan is the Shevet of Malchus. And Amalek attacks Shevet Dan, right, etc. Amalek wants to cause so that Shevet Dan, which is the Vayizane Becha, which is the Zanav, right, which is the Sof Davar, which is Elikim Yira, Amalek is causing V'lo Yireh Elikim. And the Mefarshim Machlokes Rishonim over there, whether Yireh Elikim is speaking about Amalek, that they didn't fear God and they attacked, right, or whether they caused that Shevet Dan was not fearing God, and Memela they were able to attack. That's the Nikud of Amina 8, the Eitz Adas Toiv Ra, Toiv Ra, Hoila Aimer Milarat Toiv La Toiv Ra, falling into that perspective of Safik, Gematria Amalek, doubt, to say, is Hashem here, isn't Hashem here? What's the next pasuk? Vayabe Amalek. Right after that expression of doubt, Amalek arrives. Ki Malchus Haman-Amalek hu hipoch Malchus D'Kedusha, because like we just explained at length, Malchus Haman-Amalek is the opposite of Malchus D'Kedusha. It wants to seek pirud. It wants to create disunity. It wants to create fragmentation, right? It wants to create fighting and conflict and carry and mikra in the world. Ki Malchus D'Kedusha b'chinas ma'asiv l'chalamachnis D'Kedusha, because Malchus D'Kedusha, like we learned, wants to create unity. That's the Shevet Dan, Dina de Malchus Adina, Sof Davar, Vayizane Becha, V'lo Yireh Elikim, Es Elikim Yira, that's the Bechina Mara Shel Malchus. Malchus Haman-Amalek, Shebechinas Malchus Hershal, like we said, Ho Bechinas Asif Mammon, wants to gather a lot of money. Because again, not because it's consciously interested in the Nitzotzei Kedusha, because it wants to access them and release them. It just thinks, oh my goodness, Malchus D'Kedusha is on a rampage. He's going to take all the Nitzotzes, unify them, give them back to Hashem. I'm going to try to gather as much money as I can, store it away in some Swiss, bank account. Nobody will be able to touch any of the value that I gathered, and that's the energy, right? I want to keep it for myself. That's the conflict here.
It's true of any resources that's available in the world. It's just Kesev and Zav.
Kesev and Zav are the representatives of them. Just like Ava and just like Chesed and Gvura are categories under which you can fit millions of things, right? Sweet and bitter, hot and cold. These are also, we use Chesed and Gvura. So in the same way, money has come to be a catch-all for all the different resources that could be represented. That's right. It says the Rebbe, it's not going to work. It will absolutely not help. You can try as much as you want. It will not work. Because there is within Mordechai, which is Malchus D'Kedusha, which is Marjrar, Kila Hashem Amlucha, Mordechai Atzadik has the power he can cause all of the nitzitzes that the Rasha, the Malchus or Rasha swallowed, he can cause them to vomit it all back up. This is pshat in the Gemara and Megillah, commenting on a pasuk in Kayla. The pasuk says that to a person who is walking in a positive way before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem gives him chachma v'das. Let's just read the rest of the pasuk first. And the pasuk says to the sinner, nasan inyan lesa v'lichnos. Hashem gives this inyan lesa v'lichnos, that his money should be gathered in. And the pasuk ends, lases l'tayv l'fnei elikim, to be given to the good one who walks before HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a positive way. So the Rebbe explains, based on what we're learning, what this pasuk means. First of all, he tells us that there's a Gemara Megillah Daf Yud Amud Beis that, commenting on this very pasuk, finds references to Mordechai and Haman. And it says, Kila Adam Shetayv Lefanav Nasan Chachma V'das, to the person who is good in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's eyes, Hashem gives Chachma V'das. The Gemara says Mordechai. This is a reference to Mordechai. Why? Hainusha Mordechai, Shubachinas Malchus D'Kedusha Kenis Galel, Mordechai Atzadik, who's the Inyan of Malchus D'Kedusha, who's the Inyan of Kila Hashem Amluch, who's the Inyan of Marjrar, Malchus that's free, that's being used for the appropriate reason. Nasan Loi Chachma V'das Kenis Galel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him Chachma V'das. V'zehu Toiv Lefanav. And that's on account of Mordechai's connected to the Bechina of Toiv Lefanav, Bechinas HaTorah. It's an aspect of the Torah Kedusha. Ki ein Toiv ala Torah, because the Mishnah Navas tells us there's no Toiv, there's only ala Torah. Is that this week, right? Parakvav. Right? There ain't Toiv ala Torah. Torah is Toiv. Ki lekach Toiv nasati lechem. Toirasi al tazoivu. So Mamela Mordechai Atzadik, who's the Nekuda of Malchus that has drawn Arichas Yamim into it. How does he get that? From the Torah Kedusha. So that's why the Gemara, commenting on this pasuk, Kila Adam Shetoiv Lefanav, says Mordechai, because that's Marjrar. That's how you have Malchus that's free, because it's Mekushar, like we learned, it's connected to the Torah Kedusha. Then he gets Chachma V'das. What's Chachma V'das? Like we're learning. He has Chachma, he has Bina, and that is able to bring him to Das. But the pasuk continues, to the chayte, to the one who is deviating from the Ratzon Hashem, nasan inyan lesa v'lichnos, says the Mishnah, says the Gemara, zeh Haman. That is a reference to Haman. Hainusha Haman shubechinas Malchus to Sitra Achara canal hu ma'asef mamon. Right, in contrast to Malchus D'Kedusha that tries to gather in Yidden, right, that tries to gather. Right, I don't know if he maybe he does bring that, he doesn't bring that. Beautiful, exactly right. Mordechai is Lech Knois Kol HaYehudim, right? You see, he's an ingatherer because he's Marjrar, he's Malchus D'Kedusha. Mordechai wants to gather in all of the Nekudas D'Kedusha that exist in the world, to unify them, to bring them back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to reveal the way in which Kila Hashem Amlucha and Malaych Al Kol Olam Kula B'Chvaydacha V'Yeda Kol Polki Alta Pe'altoi. That's the inyan of Mordechai Tzaddik. That's the inyan of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. That's why Rabbi Nachman's Inyan is Rosh Hashanah. Gar Mein Zach is Rosh Hashanah. The whole Rebbe's whole thing, this whole Likutei Moharan is Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is Rabbi Nachman's Inyan, because that's all we daven for. The whole tefillah of Rosh Hashanah is the most expansive tefillah of the year. You don't daven for your own needs, right? The Zohar Kadosh denigrates a person who uses Rosh Hashanah to ask for Bani Chaya Miriam, right? It's like a dog, says the Zohar Kadosh. Just have, give. Now Rosh Hashanah is not about getting. Rosh Hashanah is about giving. Rosh Hashanah is about recognizing, like we said, it's about the kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Malchuyos, the Chronos, Shofros, the Shofar Shal Mashiach, Tikab Shofar Gadol L'Cheruseinu. It's about Aleinu L'Shabeach, Rochel B'nei Basa Yikru B'Shmecha, right? Ki L'Hashem Amlucha, Moisha B'Goyim, L'Meshimar Tzenesh B'Tez, Ha'is L'Hashem Amlucha, B'Yoyim Hu Yashem Echad L'Shmei Echad. That's Rosh Hashanah. And that was Rabbeinu's whole inyan. It wasn't about the individual and what you need and what you can get. And here's a skula and come here and give a kvittel and and your parnasa. It was about kvoide yizbarach. It was about kitzarach al adam lemayit b'chvoid atzmai taravav hu laharbis b'chvoid hamakim. That was Rabbeinu. He was a different level. He was a different inyan. He was a Rosh Hashanah yid. He's a Rosh Hashanah tzaddik. Gar Mein Zach is Rosh Hashanah. So that's the inyan of Mordechai Tzaddik. That's what a tzaddik is. Mordechai is Marjar. Memela Leich Knois Kala Yehudim. He's Shevet Dan. Dina de Malchus Adina. Sof Davar. Veizaniv B'cha. He goes ahead and he wants to bring Yiras Shamayim to the world. He wants to bring people who are living in conscious awareness of Hashem. And that's Mordechai. Haman is the flip side of this. Haman just wants to gather as much money as he possibly can. Malchus to Sitra Achara Kanal Ma'asif Mammon Kanal. He is the contrast to Mordechai Tzaddik, and he's gathering money in order to lock away. Again, Mandy, not to worship, to lock away, because it's Malchus Rasha. He doesn't want to, right? See, he wants to take all these nitzotzos and he wants to bring them to himself, right? Not because there's something holy in them. He wants to subdue the holiness, trap the holiness, because he's afraid that the Malchus D'Kedusha Yid is going to use everything in the world to reveal Malchus Yisbarach. And this person just wants to say, no, it's me. No, Hashem. Nothing else. But the pasuk continues and ends, the last four words, V'zeh lases l'toiv l'fnei alikim. You know why the Russia gathers and gathers and gathers and gathers? Because ultimately it is all going to go to the tzaddik. That in the end of the day, somehow, Bechinas HaTorah, Mordechai Bechinas Malchus D'Kedusha, because Mordechai, who's the Nekuda of Malchus D'Kedusha, will be Moitzi Mimenu Kol HaMammon V'Chol HaNitzotzos. V'Nasan is that Torah Kanal. And what will happen is that Torah will emerge from this. A very, very obvious example of this, imagine a person who goes ahead and grows up with an irreligious background, or better yet, worse yet, don't know, a person grows up from, and then they go on their own way and they stop being Shomer Torah mitzvahs. And they become extremely successful for years and years and years and years. Because that's their whole goal in life now. They don't have anything else. And they don't have to buy matzahs even, so they already save thousands of pounds. And they don't, like the Jewish lifestyle is very expensive. It's kosher, saying Shabbos, yeah. My goodness, right? Living in frum communities, etc. Okay, so anyway, he's already an Aisher just because he's not frum, right? Anyway, so he becomes a big gvir because he works and works and works and he makes tons of money. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, you have a tzaddik, who his whole in the last 30 years is just Kedusha, just Yiras Shamayim. That's his thing. He lives b'doichak or comfortably, but that's not his nekuda. His main thing is revealing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you have two parts of the pasuk, right? You have ki la'adam shatayv l'fanav nasa chachma v'das. That's the nekuda of the tzaddik, right? Who spent 30 years bringing kedusha to the world. On the other hand, you have a lachaytenas and inin lesa v'lichnais, and a person who looks at a snapshot of that picture says, "Ma'alichbo." What's happening? It's something like Torah and Nay, like les din les dayan. Where's the justice? What's going on? How is HaKadosh Baruch Hu just allowing this person to have all these experiences that appear to be pleasurable and wonderful, and maybe even are, But how does that make sense? Like, he's the one who's getting all the money, and here's this tzaddik, right, who really knows what to do with the money, and Hashem is giving it to this guy, not to that guy. But that's only al pi pshat. We're only looking at a snapshot. Rega, reishis goyim Amalek. But when the story unfolds a little bit, you find out that they're nizdam and lepun echad, like the Gemara says, right? They end up in the same hotel. This guy and this tzaddik, they start talking. All of a sudden, at the age of 64, let's say, it becomes about tshuva. All the money, he didn't even give it. Maybe he didn't even have kids. He doesn't know what to give the money to. He doesn't know what to do with his money. All of a sudden, all of that money that was gathered in Sitra Achara is all of a sudden transformed into Torah. This is a particularly acute and simplified model of the very, very complex and nuanced experiences that we have in our own lives, whether around money or around other ways of trying to be kindness, pleasures, different experiences that are stored up inside of us for an unholy purpose, meaning in the moment it's not going anywhere else. It's just selfish, self-indulgent, self-gratifying experiences. And then when we finally encounter a tzaddik, we who are in Astara Shebaseicha Astara merit that all of the nitzotzes are turned into Torah. It's the same idea. It just doesn't have to be with money per se. But the Rebbe says, says an amazing thing, because again, in the first part of the Torah, he's speaking about another Yid who's struggling. That's Sitra Achara. The Astara itself becomes, Astara. Okay, is there Astara Shebaseicha Astara? But over here in the context of money, the Rebbe is saying that the other side is Amalek, is Haman-Amalek. And the Rebbe says, even there, there's Torah there. And that might be going back to what I just said from Reb Tzadok about Keri. In the Mikra, in the Keri, there's this retrospective capacity from the standpoint of Leiv Nishbar and a Ratzon D'Kedusha to return to HaKadosh Baruch Hu be'emes u'v'samim, to be able to look back and to say, no, Hashem was there too. And what happens then is everything gets released back to Kedusha. All of those years and all of that pain and all of those mistakes and all of that Sitra Achara mamish and all of that klipa is mamish transformed. What an incredible revelation of godliness it made in the world when Yisrael, who went and served all the idols of the world, came close. And he says, Ki ata yadati ki gadol Hashem, we learned in Torah Yud, says the Zohar Kadosh, Kedenis Yaakov es ala shma ilah. There was never as great a rash in all of the realms of Shemayim and Aretz in Kedusha to reveal Hashem's presence as when he came into Tshuva. Bonagid, okay, we'll say even at like a contemporary extreme thing. I think I saw in the news Kanye West is trying to make a concert in Israel, right? He who was locked out of many countries on account of his anti-Semitism, and who, the damage that he did is not to be believed, right? Nobody knows whether he's sincere or not, because nobody knows whether he's okay in his head or not. No, mamish, nobody knows. Like in the beginning, we were very angry with him. Now he's like an ebuch, like he's mamish sick. He's a sick person. He's struggling with mental health. It just so happens to be that he has one of the biggest platforms on planet Earth, which is very dangerous. Okay, but nobody knows. Let's say over the next 5-10 years, he demonstrates in every way possible that he's mamish authentic and that he mamish wants to do tshuva. Let's say. Imagine the rash that makes in the world when a guy like that ends up coming to Israel, let's say, stands strong with Klal Yisrael, is able to undo and rectify. Imagine, on account of this, that he gained influence and notoriety and popularization by all of the crowds that he can then potentially influence. What do we know the way things work? It's just another mashal. So it's like it stores up all the Nitzaitis to Kedusha. And on the one hand, it's like, oh my goodness, it's horrific, right? All of the Kedusha is being trapped in this place and consolidated. And then it turns out lahepich. It was a delivery mechanism. We just didn't see the delivery part yet. We just saw the mechanism part. It gathers all the Nitzaitis to Kedusha, and then that very thing says, okay, here you go. I got it all. Here you go. Gives it over to the tzaddik. Gives it over to Kedusha. That's what's happening here. Lases l'toiv l'fnei elikim. B'chinas ha-Torah. And there's Torah that's revealed there. Shem Mordechai shu b'chinas Malchus D'Kedusha moitzi mimenu kol ha'mamin v'chol ha'nitzaitzos. At the end of the day, all the money comes back. All the value comes back. All the nitzaitzos come back. V'nasim izet Torah. And that creates Torah k'niskil el. Ki Mordechai moitzi mimenu kol Ashirus, because Mordechai takes all the Ashirus away and brings it back to Kedusha. B'chinas chayil bala v'yikianu. Chayil bala. Chayil, which means value, strength, might, was swallowed up. But v'yikianu, it will be vomited out again. V'oisim is at Torah, and when it's vomited out, it becomes Torah. Shenikras Eishes Chayil. That was called Chayil. Eishes Chayil is a reference to the Torah. So Chayil Bala, it was Torah all along. That got swallowed up, became in different form, and then Veikianu. And then when it's released right out in the way of Kedusha, give out. That's it. And then you can recontextualize the whole struggle and all the lowliness and the times of distance from Hashem and the all experience. Now you get it. Everything is transformed. Let's just get into Zion. Let's do the next one quickly. As a person's das in this way grows, Chachma Bina, Keina Parnasa Benakal. So will the gates of Parnasa open up, and Be'ezras Hashem, it will flow more easily. Because the universe, right, which is created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, will want to assist the person who's trying to bring money in for the purpose of helping others. Right? It'll open up for them. Because easy parnasa is tali in das. Right? The people strolled about, they walked about, and they collected the man, says the Zohar Kadosh, b'shtusa. Shatu ha'am v'laktu. A person who needs to stroll all around the world to make parnasa means b'shtusa. Because generally speaking, again, it's not ironclad rules. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has his plan, and there were tzaddikim who were very, very poor, and there were Risham that are very, very rich. So that's not the nakuda. But the Rebbe says it's possible that a person who's chayser das will need to work much, much, much harder for parnasa. And it will also bring peace to the world. The more das there is, the more peace there is. Because peace is tali and das. Right? Where the wolf will dwell with the lamb. Peace. You know why? Because the world will be filled with Deya. Now, based on what we know about Deya being a conjugation of Chachma and Bina, this makes very good sense. What is Shalom? Shalom means that you're able to bring opposites together. You're able to realize how all the different parts are actually needed. We were speaking about this before Shir, right? We spoke about last night. I mentioned in the Shir, different people have different opinions, and we need them all. They all counterbalance each other. We're all contributing, right? That's what creates Shalom, when everybody's able to show up with their opinion, but humbly, with holding space for the fact that there's another side. And that guy feels just as strongly about the other side. I'm not a prophet. What do I know? But this is what I feel. Okay, so show up and say your piece, but say it humbly and say it with space and say it without animosity and at each other's throats, right? That's the Chachma and the Bina. That's the two sides of reality. They come together. That produces Das Shalom. Garza Evim Kavis. You know why? Kimala Aretz Deya. Shia Shalom Nifla Ba'olam. There will be a wondrous Shalom in the world. And he uses the word Nifla, of course, specifically because Das is the externalization of Keser, right? It just demonstrates and creates in this world a harmony that pre-existed in Keser, from which Chachma and Bina emerged. That two opposites can dwell together. Machmas goydel hadas sheyaz, because of this incredible das that will be there. Az is Bina, right? Aleph and Zion, right? One beyond seven. That's the inyan of Bina, saturated with the light of Chachma. That produces das. That's the revelation of Keser, and that is Nachal Novei Mekar Chachma. That is Rabbi Nachman himself. That's the Torah that he's teaching. The integration of Bina up into of Chachma really down into Bina, the unified light down into the parts in order to reveal the light of Keser. Shalom Nifla. Nifla is always Keser. Aleph, Pele. Because through Das, Shalom is going to be revealed. Because anger and cruelty, on account of Das, this is what we need to do in the world. You want to bring world peace? You don't start with peace. You start with Das. We need world Das first before we're going to get world peace. Everybody's trying to bring world peace. You need world consciousness. That's what we need, because the only reason there isn't peace is because people are shaitan. The Mela people are cruel, and people are not able to tolerate the other, and people are not able to sit and to dialogue and to have compassion and to. We need Das in the world. We need Das. Ki kas v'achzarius imeheder adas. Anger and cruelty come from a lack of Das. Yishuv adas. Kamashikasav kas v'chiksilim yenuach. Anger is in the chek, is in the basam, in the embrace of ksilim, of fools. And the more that Das is revealed in the world, compassion and peace will be revealed in the world. And then Parnasa will also come much easier. Shalom, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will place peace upon your boundaries. And the very next words are, after you have peace, there's going to be incredible abundance, because then countries, we're seeing it today geopolitically, Trump is in China, right? Okay, China has its issues, right? If there can be mamish shalom, it opens up huge. I mean, he went with 20 of the most prominent businessmen in the world, and it's a shocking thing. Okay, so that's a bechina of Haman-Amalek. You know what I'm saying? Edom is trying to gather all the money in. But imagine if they could use that as a positive force. Not just that they can make money for themselves, but really put money not into world peace and solving world hunger, but to mamish spread Das in the world consciousness. You'll solve all the world's problems. And then we're going to be in a situation of geula. And that's what we need to work. It starts with us. We need to live in Das. We need to help the next guy sitting next to us, right? Whatever it is, someone out there in our families, in our communities. And then bit by bit, we're able to bring this light of Das as a nation to be an or like Goyim in the world, to model this energy of compassion, consciousness, broad-mindedness, humility, all of these traits that, it's like I'll just say, it's like almost like evolution would have trained a group not to have these traits. Right? To think like if you're not brash and mean and cruel and definitive about your opinions, you never make it in this world. It's survival of the fittest. And it turns out that at this point in history, it's point five character. If you want to really survive, but be'emes, not just physically, okay, so you'll be there. You'll be in North Korea with nuclear weapons. You'll make it. Nobody will attack you. No, but that's not surviving. I mean, surviving spiritually, surviving emotionally, surviving as part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's master plan. We need now to cultivate the traits that are the hepech. We need to cultivate humility. We need to cultivate simplicity. We need to cultivate compassion toward the other. We need to, and then if we can all cultivate this together, obviously in a safe way, but in a safe and responsible way, then we're going to bring this light of Das to the whole world. And Be'ez Hashem will continue with Isaiah on Monday morning. Looking very much forward.
That's why my go-to Torah is the first thing we ask for is Shevet Dan Das.
Oh, beautiful.
Because
Before anything
else, and everything's irrelevant. If you haven't got a clear head, clear mind, a pathway, doesn't make a difference. You can have all the panos, you can have the
ואתה האב שלי שכל כך אוהב אותי, האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה שאני